Guess you're asking the wrong guy. My voice normally allows people. But okay, I'll try. So, hi everyone, good morning. So, as Nate alluded to, we will be discussing in general the data requirements for the four files, actually five files that you may need to submit for your fall two submission and also for in fulfillment of your fall two requirements, right? So the first two files that I will be discussing would be the staff data submission. This it comprises both the staff demographics and staff assignment files. So in general, we also have to determine who the staff members to report because this would essentially be the main data element or main information of who will be included in your staff demographics and staff assignments. So essentially, you have to report staff members who have SEIDs. Okay. So if you have a staff who do not have a SEID, then you cannot submit a staff demographic record and staff assignment for that specific teacher or staff member. Okay. So to be able to fulfill or generate a seed for a staff member, you have to go to either the certification process of the CTC or obtain a certificate of clearance from the CTC. Okay, so you cannot submit or report a staff member's demographic profile and assignment if they don't have a seed number. Okay, so it all boils down to who are your certificated staff. Okay, so of course there are some questions that we get sometimes we're in how about this classified staff? Do not report classified staff because those staff members will be reported in a different reporting database, which is, I believe, the CBEDS Aura. Okay. So for CalPADS, you only report certificated staff who have SEIDs, do not report classified staff, and do not report preschool teacher staff who are assigned to classroom-based assignments. Okay. If you have preschool teachers who only teaches preschool students, then do not report their staff demographics, staff assignment, and of course, their courses and students rostered to those courses. However, if your preschool teacher is employed and are also assigned to non-classroom job assignments, maybe a some other work that is relevant to their employment in your LEA that may be reported, then you could submit their SDM, SASS, and in the SAS just report their non-classroom job assignment. Okay. So for the reportable certificated staff, these basically lay out who are the staff members that you may need to report. So it's any certificated position in school districts, county office of eds, charter schools, school ad, and also you also report those staff members who are temporary on leave, who are essentially still employed by the district. Okay. And then, of course, and then you also have to report university interns or district interns authorized by the CTC and employed in a certificated position. Any non-certificated teacher or admin may obtain a certificate of clearance, and after that clearance is obtained, they will be issued a seed number. So you report those staff members as well, of course, who have seed numbers. And then, of course, you have substitute teachers, long-term or short-term subs. When we say long-term, these are your permanent day-to-day subs, I guess, who are employed by the district. And then any itinerant teachers, either in a special ed class or special ed role or in a regular class like PE or music or any of those classes may be reported, as well as pull-out pushing teachers who handle RSP classes as well as EL subjects, and individuals on provisional internship permits, short-term staff permits, or teacher emergency permits. However, it boils down to staff members who have a seed. Okay. Okay. So it is expected that all teachers and admins will require a seed number. Okay, and so if you have staff members who do not have a SEID, then by all means have them go through the credentialing process. And if they are not credentialed, but they could also go through the certificate of clearance process to acquire a SEID. So it is expected by July 1st, 2025, all charter school teachers and admins should already be credentialed by then. Okay. So here are the staff data types. As I've mentioned, you have your staff demographics, which contains all of the personal information of the staff member. Their race and ethnicity, the staff service years, their highest degree level, and then of course you have your staff assignments. These are essentially the work that these staff members are doing. They could be teachers, they could be credentialed admins, credentialed pupil service staff. And if a staff member is a teacher, they could either be assigned to a course, which represents the class that they are teaching in, or in a non-classroom based assignment, which is essentially obviously a non-classroom code like a TOSA or non-classroom assignments. And then of course, if you have pupil services, you tell us what role they do in the LA. Okay. And then once you have reported the courses, of course, we have the student course section, which reflects the roster of students enrolled in the classes. This is important if you are tracking EL students and the services that they are receiving. So as you can see, Poll 2 is essentially focused on the teacher, their credentials, and if they are credentialed to teach the classes that they are teaching right now, right? And so some of the elements on the staff demographics are needed to determine if teachers are credentialed as well as if they're experienced enough based on the total service years. So the key elements on the staff demo is the employment status, staff service years, LA, staff service years total, and the highest degree. As Nate mentioned earlier, CALPADS isn't intelligent enough to determine or add one more year to an existing staff demographic record in CALPADS. And so it is important that you update these records every year. Okay, you have to submit staff demographic records every year for staff members who are still employed by your LEA. You have to add an increment of 1 year for every year that passes into their employment. Okay. We can't determine a staff member if a staff member is 2 years into their employment, 3 years into their employment, unless you say tell us so. Okay. So here is just some of the guidance that we have in the CALPADS FAQ regarding staff service years. The reason why we're putting this here is because we have numerous questions on the service desk about staff service years, okay? Especially with the leave of absence. So in summary, it just says that if a staff member is in a leave of absence, 1 year of service counts for the staff member if the staff member is employed in a certificated position at any part of the year. If the leave of absence prevents a staff member from service for the entire year, the period of leave should be omitted from the years of service total. And then, of course, staff service years LEA represents the count of years that the staff member is employed at the district. And then staff service years total represents all of the years that the staff member worked in a public or private educational institution in their current certificated position. So the reason why we're emphasizing the staff service years is that part of the ESSA determination or ESSA collection is to determine if the teachers are ineffective, out of field teacher, and inexperienced. So the inexperienced teachers, this is basically the reason why you have to update your staff service year. So if you have a staff member who just got employed last year or 2 years ago, and this is now their third year, then if you do not submit your staff demographic record reflecting the staff member's third year in your LEA, then that staff member will be considered inexperienced teacher. Okay, so you don't want to tell the feds and as well as the state that you have inexperienced teachers. And then ineffective teachers, this is essentially based on their credentials. So if you have a teacher who does not have the right credentials to teach a class, then that could be considered ineffective. And so you have your misassignments and exceptions. And then you have your out of field teacher as well. So if you have limited permits, then the staff member would be considered out of field teacher. Okay. So before we move on to the staff assignment, do we have any questions pertaining to the SDM or says you have a question. Hello, how long would you say fall two takes all at once? I have not started yet. It depends on the number of staff members, records, and how big your district is. So so okay, okay. All right, so let's move on to the staff assignment data collection. So the next file that are required in CALPADS is the staff assignment file. So in that file, it includes the job classification. This is essentially the credential that the staff member acquired. It could be a teacher credential, an admin credential, or pupil service credential. It also includes the non-classroom based assignments. So these are the roles that the staff members are doing at your district. So if you have an admin or pupil service, the non-classroom based assignments could be, let's say, a principal, a superintendent, a psychologist, or a nurse. And then if you have a credentialed teacher and they are not assigned to a classroom, the non-classroom based assignments could be, let's say, teacher on leave, or maybe a permanent day-to-day substitute, or some other non-classroom assignments that they are assigned to. Maybe it could be a teacher, it could be a TOSA as well. So the next data element is the school of assignment, where you tell us where these staff members are assigned in. It could be at the district or at a specific school site. And then, of course, you have your FTE percentage. This is essentially the percentage of time spent on each job classification to a full-time position. Okay. All right. So with regards to the staff job classification, as we know in general, we have the credentials as either a teacher, an admin, or a pupil service. However, within that credentialed layer, there are multiple job classifications that break down those teachers and admins and pupil service. So for teachers, you may report a teacher as a 12, which is a regular teacher, credentialed teacher, a 26, which is a charter school non-certificated teacher. So these are your charter school teachers who have not acquired a credential yet, but they acquired a certificate of clearance and were generated a seed. And then you have your 27 itinerant teacher, pull out push-in teacher. These are your teachers who are assigned in multiple sites or in multiple classes and may or may not require students reported in their classes. Okay. And then you have admins. So your admin, you have your regular 10, and of course your non-certificated admin acquired their seed through the certificate of clearance process. And then of course you have your pupil service staff. So for teaching assignments, by default, we normally associate teaching assignments as the teacher assigned to a class. So essentially when you say the teacher has a teaching assignment, you have a course associated to them. However, sometimes teachers may also just not be, assigned to a class, but they have teacher credentials but are not doing instruction-based or classroom-based assignments. And so you have to submit a non-classroom job assignment for those responsibilities. Okay? So we always have questions on the job classification FTE reporting, okay? But it all boils down to actually three. So the FTE first, the FTE of a staff member cannot exceed 200% or be less than 5% total. So you see how come this you could report a 200% FTE, because sometimes there are staff members who may have multiple roles, right? And may be assigned in multiple sites. You only break down an FTE or report an FTE separate to other assignments if the staff member has, number one, multiple job classifications that you need to report, or number two, the staff is assigned in multiple sites. Okay, or maybe it could be a combination of both. So here are some scenarios that we prepared that might give light to how the process, how the FTE is broken down. Okay, so if let's say you have a staff member who is just in pure admin role, then you report a 100% FTE for that admin job classification of 10. And of course, you only report one staff assignment record. Now, if you have a staff that is either a 12, a regular teacher, a 26, or a 27, and is devoted to that specific job classification and is only assigned in one school site, then of course you report a 100% teaching job classification and one staff assignment record. Now, if you have a staff who is devoted as a 12 half of the time and 27 the other half, then that's when you start breaking up your job classifications and also breaking up or having multiple staff assignments. So for this scenario, you report 50% to the job classification of 12 and 50% to the itinerant teacher, or even more, right? 50 here, or maybe you have 75 here. Bottom line is it should not exceed 200%. And that also goes for, let's say, an admin who is 50% admin, 50% teaching. And so you split that into 50% admin and 50% job classification of teacher. And so what does that mean? You have two staff assignment records reported for that staff member for a current year. And then also we have scenarios where you have an itinerant teacher who is assigned to multiple sites, school sites. So if that's the case, then since we only have one job classification, but we're breaking it into three school sites. And so you have to submit three staff assignment records, each one reflecting itinerant job classification of 27, and each one assigned to each of the school sites. And then, of course, you break down the FTE based on those school site assignments. Again, bottom line, you can exceed 400%. Okay. And so now, let's say if you have a staff who is just devoted to just one job assignment, let's say a 12, a 26, or a 27, and do not have and have additional classroom job assignments. So let's say a teacher has a course, right? But then they also have um, non-classroom job assignments. You say the teacher is also a curriculum advisor to the to other teachers, or maybe a department head, or maybe a TOSA. So if that's the case, you since we are only reporting one job classification at one school site, you only have to submit one staff assignment reflecting that FTE of the job classification. And then you have to add um, non-classroom based assignments to that staff assignment record on top of the courses that you will be assigning them to. Okay. So bottom line here, you only reflect or split FTEs if the staff has multiple job classifications or multiple school site assignments. Okay. All right. So Now that we've have this scenario squared, we now go through the some complicated reporting processes. So how do you report teachers in CalPADS? So it's based on different scenarios, right? So if a teacher is just a regular teacher, then of course you assign them the job classification of 12 and then assign them to a appropriate class with the appropriate state course code. Now, if that teacher has other non-classroom based assignments, as I've mentioned, then you could also add a non-classroom job assignment record. Okay. And then, of course, you have your teacher of record who are on leave. So these are your staff members. These are your teachers who are permanently associated to a class. They are your teacher of record. And so, but they are on leave. The rule is if a teacher of record is still employed and the permanent teacher of record for the class, you still report the teacher as the teacher for that class. And so you assign their seed to the class that they are still reported to be associated to, even though they are on leave during census day. However, on top of that, you have to add a non-classroom job code of 6018, marking them that they are on leave, even though they are the teacher of record. So these are some scenarios that would answer some of your um, questions with regards to how to report staff members or teachers in CalPADS. You also have here um, the vacancy. So when do you report a substitute teacher? You only report that if there is a vacancy for that specific class, meaning there was no permanent hire, there was no teacher of record on census day for that class. If that's the case, you report the seed of the substitute teacher who was teaching the class on census day. Okay. And then you have here your pull out push-in teachers. So these are your teachers who are assigned to multiple classes or multiple sites. So these are normally your band, your PE, your push-in pull out EL teachers, your RSP special ed teachers. So um, and so these are the ones that you assign to a class, but may submitting the student rosters for that class would be optional. And then you have your college teachers not employed by the LEA. So since you don't have their demographic info, for you to be able to tell us that a student is enrolled in a college course that was articulated or you had an MOU for, then you have to assign a SEED 999 for that course instead. Okay. And then, of course, you have your teachers who are not employed by the LEA. You have your ROPC, your distant learning, your third party teachers. If you have the ability to get their staff demographic info and their credentials, assuming they are credentialed, then you submit, it is recommended that you submit their staff demo and also the staff assignments and tell us that they are a contracted employee or a third party employee. Okay. However, if for some reason you really can't generate or get their information, your last recourse is just to submit a course with a SEED 999. But do know that apart from college courses and CT courses, any class that is marked or assigned to a SEED 999 teacher would be an automatic misassignment. And then here are some additional non-classroom based assignments that was introduced last year that a teacher may be assigned to. So you have your teacher on special assignment, you have your special education case manager, and also program school site coordinator. So it provides you an example of scenarios that may apply to these staff members. So we have questions here. It says here, number one, do we have certificated admin on leave? Do we report certificated admin on leave? If so, there is a special on leave job code. It that this would still be the same code, the 6018 that could apply to them if because that's essentially on leave code. But normally the teacher on the leave is normally for is more useful for reporting teachers who are on leave, because we also have to identify the teachers if they are on leave based on their staff profile. There are some info that we need to determine if a staff member is on leave. Okay, but yeah, you can put the 60/18 on an admin role too. So to answer that question, we could go to the CALPADS valid code combinations document. We go to the non-classroom assignment code, job class. We filter for the specific um, for those valid codes this year. And then if it's an admin, so we only filter for the 10. And as you can see, you can report a 60/18 employee on leave for an admin as well. All right, so moving on. So we always have questions on special ed teachers. So this slide just emphasizes how you report special ed teachers. Okay, so if a teacher is assigned to a self-contained course, so if a teacher is in a special day class and are teaching a self-contained class for those students, you report the teacher to a state course code of 1000 self-contained class, and make sure that the instructional strategy code is marked with a 700 special ed. Okay. Um, and that also applies to departmentalized courses. So if a teacher is assigned to a departmentalized course that is specific to SPED students, there, the class is not a mixed bag of SPED and regular students. So this is just specific to SPED students. Then you have to submit you have to assign the teacher to a class specific to that departmentalized class and mark the class as a special ed 700. Now, for RSP teachers, most of the time, most of the scenarios I get through tickets is RLAs asking about um, how to report RSP teachers who are team teaching a class, or what if an RSP teacher is um, is team teaching with a regular teacher in a self-contained 1000 class. How do you report them? The answer is you have to separate their course. You have to separate their class. You have to separate her from the regular um, mainstream class. And so this scenario will help you with that. So you have to submit if a staff member is team teaching a class, then you have to separate their class. You have to assign them to a state course code of 9231, which is the RSP or whatever special ed RS specific class that the teacher is handling. You have to mark it as a 700 and make sure that you report the teacher as a 27, which is the itinerant job classification. This is important, okay? 27 and 9 to 31. The reason why you have to mark this as 27 is that you are not compelled to assign those SPED students that they are pulling out and place in this course. You're not required to submit your SCSC to the course. So bear in mind, um, Fall 2 is more towards the teachers, and if they are credentialed to be teaching the class that they are assigned to them. And so the reason why we're separating the RSP from the regular mainstream is because of this. You have to tell us that you have an RSP teacher and they are assigned to a 9231 class with a 700 SPED um, job instruction. Because the reason behind this is that if you report them as team teaching to a mainstream class, and